Madagascar is an island country in the Indian Ocean that includes the island of Madagascar and numerous smaller peripheral islands. Lying off the southeastern coast of Africa, it is the world's fourth largest island, the second largest island country, and the 46th largest country overall. Its capital and largest city is Antananarivo. Following the prehistoric breakup of the supercontinent Gondwana, Madagascar split from Africa during the early Jurassic period, around 180 million years ago, and separated from the Indian subcontinent approximately 90 million years ago. This isolation allowed native plants and animals to evolve in relative seclusion. As a result, Madagascar is a biodiversity hotspot and one of the world's 17 megadiverse countries, with over 90% of its wildlife being endemic. The island has a subtropical to tropical maritime climate. Madagascar was first permanently settled during or before the mid-1st millennium AD, roughly AD 500 to AD 700, by Austronesian peoples, presumably arriving on outrigger canoes from present-day Indonesia. These were joined around the 9th century AD by Bantu groups crossing the Mozambique Channel from East Africa. Other groups continued to settle on Madagascar over time, each one making lasting contributions to Malagasy cultural life. Consequently, there are 18 or more classified peoples of Madagascar, the most numerous being the Merina of the Central Highlands. Until the late 18th century, the island of Madagascar was ruled by a fragmented assortment of shifting socio-political alliances. Beginning in the early 19th century, most of it was united and ruled as the Kingdom of Madagascar by a series of Merina nobles. The monarchy was ended in 1897 by the annexation by France, from which Madagascar gained independence in 1960. The country has since undergone 4 major constitutional periods, termed republics, and has been governed as a constitutional democracy since 1992. Following a political crisis and military coup in 2009, Madagascar underwent a protracted transition towards its fourth and current republic, with constitutional governance being restored in January 2014. Madagascar is a member of the United Nations, UN, the African Union, the Southern African Development Community, SADC, and the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. Malagasy and French are both official languages of the state. Christianity is the country's predominant religion, with a significant minority still practicing traditional faiths. Madagascar is classified as a least developed country by the UN. Ecotourism and agriculture, paired with greater investments in education, health, and private enterprise, are key elements of its development strategy. Despite substantial economic growth since the early 2000s, income disparities have widened, and quality of life remains low for the majority of the population. As of 2021, 68.4% of the population was considered to be multidimensionally poor. Since regaining independence, Madagascar has transitioned through 4 republics with corresponding revisions to its constitution. The First Republic, 1960–72, under the leadership of French-appointed President Philibert Tsarayana, was characterized by a continuation of strong economic and political ties to France. Many high-level technical positions were filled by French expatriates, and French teachers, textbooks, and curricula continued to be used in schools around the country. Popular resentment over Tsarayana's tolerance for this neo-colonial arrangement inspired a series of farmer and student protests that overturned his administration in 1972. Gabriel Ramonanso, a major general in the army, was appointed interim president and prime minister that same year, but low public approval forced him to step down in 1975. Colonel Richard Ratsamandreva, appointed to succeed him, was assassinated 6 days into his tenure. General Gilles Andriamahazo ruled after Ratsamandreva for 4 months before being replaced by another military appointee, Vice Admiral Didier Ratsirika, who ushered in the Marxist-Leninist Second Republic that ran under his tenure from 1975 to 1993. This period saw a political alignment with the Eastern Bloc countries and a shift toward economic insularity. These policies, coupled with economic pressures stemming from the 1973 oil crisis, resulted in the rapid collapse of Madagascar's economy and a sharp decline in living standards, and the country had become completely bankrupt by 1979. The Ratsirika administration accepted the conditions of transparency, anti-corruption measures, and free market policies imposed by the International Monetary Fund, World Bank and various bilateral donors in exchange for their bailout of the nation's broken economy. Ratsirika's dwindling popularity in the late 1980s reached a critical point in 1991 when presidential guards opened fire on unarmed protesters during a rally. Within 2 months, a transitional government had been established under the leadership of Albert Zafai, 1993–96, who went on to win the 1992 presidential elections and inaugurate the Third Republic, 1992–2010. The new Madagascar constitution established a multi-party democracy and a separation of powers that placed significant control in the hands of the National Assembly. The new constitution also emphasized human rights, social and political freedoms, and free trade. Zafai's term, however, was marred by economic decline, allegations of corruption, and his introduction of legislation to give himself greater powers. He was consequently impeached in 1996, and an interim president, Norbert Ratsirahanana, was appointed for the 3 months prior to the next presidential election. Ratsirika was then voted back into power on a platform of decentralization and economic reforms for a second term which lasted from 1996 to 2001. The contested 2001 presidential elections, in which then mayor of Antananarivo, Mark Ravalomanana, eventually emerged victorious, caused a 7-month standoff in 2002 between supporters of Ravalomanana and Ratsirika. The negative economic impact of the political crisis was gradually overcome by Ravalomanana's progressive economic and political policies, which encouraged investments in education and ecotourism, facilitated foreign direct investment, and cultivated trading partnerships both regionally and internationally. National GDP grew at an average rate of 7% per year under his administration. In the latter half of his second term, Ravalomanana was criticized by domestic and international observers who accused him of increasing authoritarianism and corruption. Opposition leader and then mayor of Antananarivo, Andry Rajoelina, led a movement in early 2009 in which Ravalomanana was pushed from power in an unconstitutional process widely condemned as a coup d'état. In March 2009, Rajoelina was declared by the Supreme Court as the president of the High Transitional Authority, an interim governing body responsible for moving the country toward presidential elections. In 2010, a new constitution was adopted by referendum, establishing a Fourth Republic, which sustained the democratic, multi-party structure established in the previous constitution. Hiri Rajayanarimampionina was declared the winner of the 2013 presidential election, which the international community deemed fair and transparent. In 2018, the first round of the presidential election was held on November 7 and the second round was held on December 10. 3 former presidents and the most recent president were the main candidates of the elections. Rajoelina won the second round of the elections. Ravalomanana lost the second round and he did not accept the results because of allegations of fraud. Rajayanarimampionina received very modest support in the first round. In January 2019, the High Constitutional Court declared Rajoelina as the winner of the elections and the new president. In the 2019 parliamentary elections, Rajoelina's party won an absolute majority in the National Assembly. It won 84 of the 151 seats in the National Assembly, while supporters of former President Ravalomanana only won 16 seats, with the other 51 seats going to independents and minor parties. Mid-2021 marked the beginning of the 2021-2022 Madagascar famine which, due to a severe drought, caused hundreds of thousands of people to face food insecurity and over 1 million people were on the verge of a famine. In November 2023, Rajoelina was re-elected to another term with 58.95% of the vote in the first round of the election amidst an opposition boycott and a controversy about his acquisition of French citizenship and subsequent eligibility. Turnout was 46.36%, the lowest in a presidential election in the country's history. At 592,800 square kilometers, 228,900 square miles, Madagascar is the world's 46th largest country, the second largest island country and the fourth largest island. Neighboring islands include the French territory of Réunion and the country of Mauritius to the east, as well as the state of Comoros and the French territory of Mayotte to the northwest. The nearest mainland state is Mozambique, located to the west. Madagascar is a semi-presidential representative democratic multi-party republic, wherein the popularly elected president is the head of state and selects a prime minister, who recommends candidates to the president to form his cabinet of ministers. According to the constitution, executive power is exercised by the government while legislative power is vested in the ministerial cabinet, the Senate, and the National Assembly, although in reality these two latter bodies have very little power or legislative role. The constitution establishes independent executive, legislative and judicial branches and mandates a popularly elected president limited to 3 5-year terms. Antananarivo is the administrative capital and largest city of Madagascar. It is located in the Highlands region, near the geographic center of the island. The city remained the capital of Madagascar after regaining independence in 1960. In 2017, the capital's population was estimated at 1,391,433 inhabitants. Since Madagascar gained independence from France in 1960, the island's political transitions have been marked by numerous popular protests, several disputed elections, an impeachment, 2 military coups and 1 assassination. The island's recurrent political crises are often prolonged, with detrimental effects on the local economy, international relations, and Malagasy living standards. The 8-month standoff between incumbent Ratsirika and challenger Marc Ravalomanana following the 2001 presidential elections cost Madagascar millions of dollars in lost tourism and trade revenue as well as damage to infrastructure, such as bombed bridges and buildings damaged by arson. A series of protests led by Andry Rajoelina against Ravalomanana in early 2009 became violent, with more than 170 people killed. Modern politics in Madagascar are colored by the history of marina subjugation of coastal communities under their rule in the 19th century. The consequent tension between the highland and coastal populations has periodically flared up into isolated events of violence. Madagascar has historically been perceived as being on the margin of mainstream African affairs despite being a founding member of the Organization of African Unity, which was established in 1963 and dissolved in 2002 to be replaced by the African Union. Madagascar was not permitted to attend the first African Union summit because of a dispute over the results of the 2001 presidential election, but rejoined the African Union in July 2003 after a 14-month hiatus. Madagascar was again suspended by the African Union in March 2009 following the unconstitutional transfer of executive power to Rajoelina. Madagascar is a member of the International Criminal Court with a bilateral immunity agreement of protection for the United States military. 11 countries have established embassies in Madagascar, including France, the United Kingdom, the United States, China, and India, while Madagascar has embassies in 16 other countries. Human rights in Madagascar are protected under the Constitution and the state is a signatory to numerous international agreements including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Religious, ethnic, and sexual minorities are protected under the law. Freedom of association and assembly are also guaranteed under the law, although in practice the denial of permits for public assembly has occasionally been used to impede political demonstrations. Torture by security forces is rare and state repression is low relative to other countries with comparably few legal safeguards, although arbitrary arrests and the corruption of military and police officers remain problems. Ravalomanina's 2004 creation of Bianco, an anti-corruption bureau, resulted in reduced corruption among Antananarivo's lower-level bureaucrats in particular, although high-level officials have not been prosecuted by the bureau. Accusations of media censorship have risen due to the alleged restrictions on the coverage of government opposition. Some journalists have been arrested for allegedly spreading fake news. Madagascar became a member state of the United Nations on September 20, 1960, shortly after gaining its independence on June 26, 1960. As of January 2017, 34 police officers from Madagascar are deployed in Haiti as part of the United Nations Stabilization Mission in Haiti. Starting in 2015, under the direction of and with assistance from the UN, the World Food Programme started the Madagascar Country Programme with the two main goals of long-term development and reconstruction efforts, and addressing the food insecurity issues in the southern regions of Madagascar. These goals plan to be accomplished by providing meals for specific schools in rural and urban priority areas and by developing national school feeding policies to increase consistency of nourishment throughout the country. Small and local farmers have also been assisted in increasing both the quantity and quality of their production, as well as improving their crop yield in unfavorable weather conditions. In 2017, Madagascar signed the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. The Malagasy language is of Malayo-Polynesian origin and is generally spoken throughout the island. Madagascar is a francophone country, and French is mostly spoken as a second language among the educated population and used for international communication. Christianity is the most widely professed religion in Madagascar. The people of Madagascar enjoy playing many sports, 6 of which form the core of the country's school and amateur team-based competitive system: football, soccer, boxing, athletics, track and field, judo, women's basketball, and women's tennis. Malagasy athletes have excelled in the last sport especially, with 2 sisters, Dali Randriantovai and Natasha Randriantovai, competing internationally in such events as the US Open and the Olympic Games. Madagascar made its Olympic debut in 1964 at the Tokyo Games. The country has also sent national teams to the African Games, and Malagasy athletes have participated as members of Pan-African teams at the World Cup in athletics. Outdoor sports enthusiasts and nature lovers alike are drawn to Madagascar's coastline, which is almost 2,500 miles, 4,000 kilometers, in length. Much of the coast is bordered with fine beaches and calm lagoons overlooking offshore coral reefs and sandbars, and the warm, clear waters are filled with a rich marine life, which, combined with the island's unique and diverse terrestrial plant and animal life, has helped Madagascar garner widespread appreciation for its natural wealth. Thank you for watching this video.